Welcome to Never Met a Stranger Whispers of Wisdom's podcast with Sean Williams. Today, you guys, we have a treat. I have Mr. Charles Robinson here with us today. Good morning, Mr. Charles Robinson. How are you doing today?
I'm a little cold right
now. I know.
But...
Thank you. I thank you so much for coming out in the cold. It was very, very cold outside.
I don't usually come out in the cold.
So, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming out here today because it is very cold outside. But you guys, we have a treat today. Mr. Robinson, he is a mediator. He's a professor. He's a peacemaker. He provides leadership for community peace, healing, and collaboration, which I love. I'm actually a peacemaker myself. So when we met, which I didn't meet him in the lift car like I usually meet most of my strangers, I actually met him at Asada High School. We both are mentors at the high school. So I've been there maybe about a year or so. How long have you been there?
I just started this semester.
This semester.
Well, okay. Although I taught last year, I was a long-term sub.
Okay.
I ended up teaching the whole year.
Oh, nice.
But then they wanted me to come back to mentor the men.
Right.
And then you got them.
And I mentored the young lady. So that's how we ended up meeting at the school. And so, like he said, he mentors the young men and I mentor the young ladies. And so we collaborated a couple times and that's how we met. And so he told me his story about what he's been doing and the things that he want to do. And I was like, oh my goodness, I have to get you on my podcast because it can help so many people. And since he's a peacemaker and so am I, oh yes. And I did a little research.
Oh yeah.
I found out, which was so fitting for today, that you're Alpha Phi Alpha.
06.
And guess who else is the Alpha Phi Alpha? Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
That's right.
So this was so fitting for today for me. And I just was like, oh my goodness, look how things just work out, honoring him this month. And I did a little bit more research and found out you were alumni of Rufus King High School.
I'm the 2015 alumnus of the year. And I was inducted into the Rufus King Athletic Hall of Fame in 2022.
Nice. I'm an alumni as well.
Come on.
So we never talked about that, or you never told me that you didn't tell me that you was an alpha either.
I can sing the alma mater verbatim right now.
Okay, go ahead.
But I'm not going to do it.
But so I did a little research. I said, let me look into Mr. Robertson. And so I said, oh my goodness, how fitting is this for today that you're Alpha and so is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Mm-hmm. I said, this is amazing. And so I had looked into it and it said Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was a member of the fraternity as well. And since we're celebrating this month, he was directly responsible. The Alphas were directly responsible for the conception, the funding, and construction of the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial next to the National Mall in Washington, D.C. Okay. So I was like, this is so amazing. I was just so excited. I was telling my daughters about it. And I said, look how things work out. I said, and we never talked about that at the school Friday when we was in school. We didn't even talk about that. So
we didn't plan to meet. It was a miracle.
It happened by chance, right? And nothing happens by accident. I say that all the time. Right. And so I'm so honored that you're here today. Mm-hmm. And tell me a little bit about what you're doing right now.
Okay. Oh, and regarding Alpha Phi Alpha.
Yes.
I went to Whitewater. It was called the Wisconsin State University Whitewater.
Okay.
They changed the name to UW Whitewater now.
Okay.
Well, we founded the first chapter, fraternity chapter on campus. And,
nice.
And
how nice is that?
Yeah. So I'm one of the founders for that too.
Oh, come on now, Mr. Sir. I am so honored am so honored, and thank you again so much for coming. I was elated. I was telling my daughters, I'm like, he's done so much. I was just looking at everything that you sent, and I was just like, wow, this, I could just go on and on and on about your accomplishments, your background and things that you've done. We have a lot that we could talk about, and we don't have a whole lot of time,
Right.
but I'm here to listen to. So everything that you have going on is so important. Like I said, the Never Met a Stranger Whispers of Wisdom podcast is about me, meeting people that I've never met, of course, but they have untold stories, or stories that they need to get out, or things that they want to do to help, that can help other people, because everybody's story is important. And
I love the work that you were doing when we met the first time. We brought the young men and young ladies together.
Yeah.
And you were talking about affirmations.
Yes.
And
yes.
I used to work in a prison too.
Okay.
Prison setting. I was the ICI in Winnebago County.
Oh wow.
Corrections and Care and Treatment.
Yeah.
And so I had the responsibility for facilitating the complaint process.
Okay.
For the rights and resources of the inmates, making sure. And a lot of, but it was 95-mile commute one way.
Oh,
and I did that for almost 4 years.
Oh, dedication.
Yeah.
That is dedication.
And sometimes I would stay late and play, but I used to play a lot of sports and stuff. And I would play basketball with some of the inmates. And some of them I would mentor them.
Okay.
And we use affirmations.
Nice.
We use affirmations because words are powerful.
Words are powerful.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So without the Word, there would be no concept of God.
Absolutely.
That's how powerful that is, the languaging process.
Yes.
But I think the most important part of the languaging process is listening.
It's listening. We just talked about that Friday. We talked about that we sure did talk about that. Listening is important.
Right.
Communication is so important, but listening is one of the keys.
That's right.
Because you got to be a good listener to be a good communicator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
I went to, like I said, Wisconsin State University, Whitewater. How many years ago was that? In 1967, January I started, and we had about 50 Black students on campus that year. And about a year and a half later, we tripled the numbers because the university gave us the card. They said, we can't go out and recruit, but if you want to, you can have the vehicles. And so we went to Milwaukee, Chicago, and Beloit, and Kenosha, and so we tripled our numbers.
Oh, nice.
And so what my intention was to graduate and teach and coach at my alma mater, Rufus King High School. that was my dream. And so I got out, and I was at the same time pursuing a master's degree in school psychology. Okay. Because psychology really, really intrigued me.
Me as well.
I always wondered, why people act the way they act.
Absolutely.
And so I had a double major up until my junior year.
Okay.
When we had a riot on campus.
Oh, wow.
And I was 16 of us were suspended. Some for a year, some for 2 years, and some were expelled. Okay. Because of a fight on campus. It turned into like a mini riot. Yeah. And even though I wasn't there at the fight at the gym, which ended up going over to a downtown white fraternity house. Okay. Where the brothers marched on the white fraternity and invaded their house. Oh wow. And beat them up pretty bad and broke a lot of furniture and trophies and all that stuff. Yeah. So the attorney general got involved because 2 shots were fired. And so the attorney general charged us with 2 felonies. Okay. And a misdemeanor. Oh, wow. Even though, I was like big man on campus.
You're right.
We had an undefeated football team that was on the way to the bowl game until we lost the last game to Oshkosh. But I was dean of pledges. Yeah. I had about a 3.6 or better coming because that was at the end of the semester, right? Before the grades came out when they suspended me. Right. But we didn't have any due process. They just summarily said we're going to suspend you for your own welfare.
Okay.
Because that was the time back in the late 60s, toward the end of the civil rights movement, as we know it.
Absolutely.
And so there was a lot of unrest on college campuses nationwide.
Okay.
And during that time, right after our suspension, the main building on campus, been there since 1857.
Okay.
Got blown up.
Oh, wow.
And so there was a lot of things going on at that time. And even though I had to go through that, we finally, my fraternity, and my mother was the president of the Concerned Parent Organization.
Okay.
That raised enough money to pay for our legal defense. Oh. We had Percy Julian Jr.
Okay.
Who was the son of Percy Julian, who invented cortisone. He was a famous scientist.
Yeah.
Percy Julian was a famous personality in Black history. And his son was a young lawyer at the time.
Okay.
He was handling the case for all 16 of us. In retrospect, I don't think that was a good idea for him to handle all 16. Because if he would have spent more time with me, he would have found out and perhaps convinced the judge and the president of the university that I was sitting in an evening class at the time of this fight at the gym.
Right.
At the intramural basketball game. That I was in a night class that met from 6:30 to 9. And I had special permission. It was a graduate level course. Oh. And I got special permission to be in this graduate level course. And I was really happy because I found my niche, that I was going to pursue a major in education and psychology. Before, I wasn't sure what I was going to do.
Right.
And so everything was working for me up until December 16th, 1969.
1969, what happened?
That's when that fight broke out.
Oh, okay.
And then, when I was coming out of that class, that night class,
right,
I saw everybody going downtown, marching downtown.
Right. And
I was wondering what was going on. So I ran down and tried to catch them. I heard that they were trying to confront this white fraternity, Phi Chi Epsilon fraternity, because of the fight earlier.
Okay.
With, the Black people were outnumbered. There was 2 females and I think 7 Black men, and they was in a gym with nothing but white people. And so the people got really emotional when they said that these Black guys jumped on the smallest number of Black people, including women. I think that's what triggered. So they had a meeting with the Black Student Union and decided to confront them. But I could see while they were marching down Main Street, the police were following them. And some of them had guns. And then when they found out the police, they gave the weapons and stuff to the women to put in their purses.
Right.
But I got there right after they had already invaded. I was a junior. These are mostly freshmen. Okay. Underclassmen.
Right.
And some upperclassmen. But I wanted to. That was a dangerous situation because these guys had guns. Right. The white guys had guns. And this was in the 60s, right? This was in the late 60s. It's 69, 1969. Okay. So long story short, we don't want to spend all the time talking about this.
No, we can go ahead. Yeah.
But so I couldn't go to any public school in the state, and but I applied to UWM. Okay. And they said your application is out of order because of the Board of Regents' decision to back the judge's decision to suspend you guys. Well, the president, because we never really had a hearing. But we were charged with 2 felonies and a misdemeanor. And after we paid them for their damages, the charges were dropped. Okay. But then I was already out of school. Right. I lost the whole academic year. Exactly. My last year playing football, I would have been one of the captains on the football team. Oh, and we were, like I said, we were pretty good. And but I still ended up, and this is what I'm so proud of myself. Yeah. I ended up graduating in 4.5 years, despite being suspended for a whole year.
That was cool.
Marquette let me in.
Oh, wow.
And then I took a couple of classes there, and then I came back to Whitewater and finished in summer school.
Okay.
And what they're saying, I couldn't check the records, but they were saying that I was one of the first 10 Black graduates to graduate from Whitewater, although 500 had matriculated.
Right. Wow. That's something.
A lot of alienation, a lot of racism.
Yeah.
And we fought through that, establishing the chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Health, because we had our own house. And
right.
We had a basement, big basement. People could socialize, and we would tutor.
Yeah.
Incoming freshmen. And then we started the Society of African American Students, which ended up being the Black Student Union.
Okay.
So we had organizations that allowed us to come together and socialize.
Yeah.
Because then in the University Commons, we only had 2 Black records.
Okay.
In the jukebox, the old jukebox. it was Aretha Franklin, Respect, and the other one was Dionne Warwick, In Between the Heartaches.
Okay. Oh, wow.
And so we would listen to those over and over again.
Okay. Well, let's switch over to.
Okay.
I want to talk about this book.
Yes.
We were talking about race. We were talking about racism, but this book, My Grandmother's Hands.
Yeah.
When we were in class on Friday, you were telling me that in school on Friday, you were telling me that you taught this book.
Yes.
Right. And so this book is by Resmaa. How do you pronounce it? Menakem. Menakem. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the book is about racialized trauma and mending our hearts and bodies. This book was one of the New York Times bestsellers, and the author was on Oprah Winfrey and the Dr. Phil show. And you said he was from Milwaukee, right?
Yes. He had. I don't know if he was born in Milwaukee, but I know he grew up in Milwaukee.
Okay.
And he worked with Antonia Drew, who has a company that she has a social service that deals with violence, for dealing with what do you call it? Domestic violence.
Okay.
Right. She gives support to domestic violence victims. So he did some work with Antonia Drew.
Oh, wow. Mm. Okay. And in this book, it says the book offers a new way to understanding racism and, more importantly, how to heal it. So can you tell us a little bit about what you taught when you taught this book? You taught this book, did you say 10 years? How many years did you tell me?
Well, it's not that old. The book is only, maybe a couple years old. Right. But you know, now that we know more and more about trauma.
And that trauma, we talk about that a lot.
Trauma can be handed down epigenetically, according to Resmaa, and he's an expert. You know, he worked with hundreds of people in the military, because he was stationed in Afghanistan, and so he counseled with a lot of the military who were, of course, affected by the war.
Right.
And you can go on YouTube. You could probably find 100 YouTube interviews of him, because he unapologetically talks about white racism and trauma.
Okay.
In fact, he breaks it down: Black trauma, blue trauma, and white trauma. And what he's saying is that each group must deal with their trauma individually. Because if you're white, I can't help you deal with your trauma. And blue trauma is the police trauma.
Okay.
But when police shoot somebody and they can't explain why.
Right.
It's like trauma.
Like a PTSD or something, kind of something like that, but more genetic.
Yeah. It's like the amygdala, in the brain, that when you sense a threat.
Right.
And the brain is commandeered by the amygdala. The executive part of the brain.
Okay.
Is basically shut down, and the survival part of the brain, fight, flight, or freeze, or fawn,
right,
it takes over. And he breaks it down very well. The book was given to me by my son's girlfriend.
Okay.
And I think either for Father's Day or it might have been Christmas. And I just put it on the shelf. I didn't read it for about a year.
Okay.
And then I finally picked it up and started reading it.
Yeah.
And I've been sharing it quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't read it yet, but I'm gonna read it because I just got it from Miss Pruitt. I just got it from her Friday when we were in school. So I got it from her. But I know you said that you were teaching this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, if trauma can be handed down epigenetically,
right?
Can you think about the amount of trauma that was in our ancestors?
Absolutely.
In their bodies?
Right.
And
that we deal with now that we don't even know anything about.
And we're dealing with that now.
And we're dealing with it now.
Because it's in our DNA.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, you're going to love the book. And the good thing about the book is after each chapter, he has processes that you can go through, exercises that you can go through to metabolize the trauma.
Oh, nice.
Or to process the trauma.
Okay. Yeah, because a lot of people now are talking about, you need to heal, you need to heal your traumas. But the thing is, how do I do that? How do I start to do that? And so a lot of people ask those questions. How do I heal? Where do I start? And you got to go back to those places that's not comfortable. Forgiveness is huge.
Well, everything that we experience is recorded in our brain, in the medulla oblongata, part of our brain. And so from time to time, somebody may say something, or you may have an experience, and you might get triggered.
Right.
And then the trauma, you begin to experience what you experienced before.
Right. Your body and everything starts to act just like it did back then.
But one of the solutions, and Resm talks about this in his book, is to engage in mindful practices like breathing, deep breathing, and meditation, yoga, those kinds of things. Well, it's sometimes if you get up, something triggers you and you get upset, you could just count to 10.
Yeah.
Pause.
Right.
The key is to pause before you do or say something that you'll be sorry for later.
Absolutely.
And by practicing mindfully, and you have to do it, you have to condition your brain,
right?
To have that pause, to be able to pause.
Yeah.
And if you do it on a daily basis, because I was curious, so I'd say, well, what is this mindful thing? After I read the book,
right? And
so I started reading. I think I read about 17 books on mindful practices, and trauma and things like that, because I wanted to incorporate it into the training that I was putting together.
Right, and we got to talk about that
for people going through
co-parenting,
going through mediation,
right?
Trying to resolve disputes and conflict,
right?
And I got the what gave me the idea to bring that into my mediation practice was the San Bushman on the Kalahari. We can talk about that too.
Yeah, we can talk about that, and I want to talk about your the Kalahari Peace Institute too. Right. I want to talk about that.
That's where that came from.
That's where that came.
The San Bushman on the Kalahari.
Okay.
They believe that the gods will be angry at them,
right,
if they harbored unresolved conflict.
Right.
So conflict had to be resolved. Otherwise, you sin.
In real time.
Otherwise,
that's
right.
Right.
Otherwise, you committing sin, and the gods would be angry. They believe in more than one God. So they would convene in a circle. That's where the circle process, the original circle process came from. Where people sit in a circle and what they call restorative justice.
Okay.
Well, we could trace that all the way back to our ancestors. The San Bushmen, one of the oldest cultures known to man. They didn't have a history of war.
Okay.
Right. So, but they had these little arrows.
Okay.
That, if they shoot you with one of those arrows, you're gonna die a devastating death because you will die of like asphyxiation. These little poisonous arrows.
Okay.
Are you familiar with those?
I'm not.
You probably are. Have you seen the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy?
No.
You're not old enough. Okay. It came out in, I think, in 1980. But it's a comedy that.
What's the name? Maybe.
The Gods Must Be Crazy.
Must be crazy.
Right. But it's a comedy, but it deals with the Sand Bushmen on the Kalahari, and it shows their process. Well, after I saw the movie, it was so popular.
Okay.
And I took my mother to see it on Mother's Day. But I ran into an article about the Sand Bushmen, and my mediator, I mean, my mentor, when I graduated from college and started teaching, there was a guy named Robert Parrott.
Okay.
Who was a reading teacher. He was a paraprofessional aide at the school. Robert Fulton.
Okay.
Robert Fulton Junior High School.
Okay.
And the guy his daughters were reading on the college level, and they were like 7, 8 years old.
Really?
This guy was so committed and dedicated. And so when my first year teaching, he was kind of like a mentor to me.
Right.
And one day we were talking about a multi-level marketing business.
Okay.
And this guy was trying to get me involved in it. And so I asked Baba Parrott if he would meet with me.
Yeah.
And because I wanted to share it with him too.
Mm-hmm.
And after the guy did his presentation, he came up with the question, well, what do you want? What is your dream? What is your vision? What do you want for yourself in life? And Baba Parrott came back with, I want to live like the Sand Bushmen on the Kalahari. Because I want to live like the Bushmen on the Kalahari. And I was thinking, they live in huts.
Right.
They don't have a body of water. They have to pull roots out of the ground.
Right.
They have to hunt and gather. They, have to anesthetize their food, their animals.
Right.
And but he was talking about how close they live with nature,
the peace,
and how they raise their children. They didn't have any disharmony.
The simple life.
And so when he and his wife eventually they divorced, and I ended up in his apartment, and he had his apartment set up just like a hut.
Really?
Yeah. Like a Sand Bushman hut. Yeah. But if you get a chance, there's an article, Notes on Dispute Resolution from the Kalahari.
Okay.
And I stumbled across that article. I was training peer mediators.
Right.
Back in the 80s and 90s for MPS.
Oh, right. I want to talk too about you do a lot of, you did a mediation for the post office too, right?
Yeah, the Postal Service,
Milwaukee County, EEOC,
and for Resolute Systems.
The
private.
Equal rights specialist. You were an equal rights specialist.
Yeah.
I got.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I had to create.
You know I was gonna do all that, didn't you?
I had no idea.
Yep. That's what I was telling him. I said, "Wow." I said, "He's awesome. I'm honored to have you."
Well,
but go ahead. I'm trying to be.
I've been around for a while.
Yeah, but I'm so honored. This was just right on time. But just keep going. I'm just thankful that you're here. So go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much to talk about. But when I worked for the Equal Rights Commission in the mayor's office, they weren't even open for business.
Okay.
For about 2 years, and then they hired me, and but I was replacing 3.5 people.
What?
So, and my job was to facilitate the complaint process for employment, housing, and public accommodations.
Okay.
And it was just too much for one person to do, right? So I created a mediation process, and I actually hired Judge Ashley.
Okay.
To be our administrative law judge, because we have to have somewhere for people to appeal.
Yeah.
So, and that's how he got his first experience being a judge.
Really?
And and then shortly thereafter, he ran unopposed and got the judgeship.
Yeah.
That he had, and now he's chief judge.
Right, right.
So I'm planning to meet with him to discuss a specialty court, a co-parenting court.
Yes, so we got to talk about that. So we got to talk about the co-parenting.
Right.
I know you wanted to. I told you about my daughter Friday. We were talking.
Oh boy, that was
something else we talked about on Friday.
That was so touching and moving when you shared that the success that they had.
Yeah.
Well, see, the research shows that when what they call the non-resident parent, usually the father,
right? Absolutely,
becomes intricately involved in the raising of their children in their lives, that a lot of things change.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's a win-win situation all the way around, including the behavior
of the child,
of the father.
Absolutely.
Because who wants to be an active fool around their children?
Exactly. You know what? Did you want me to call my daughter really quick? Did you want
Go ahead. I mean, if you want to,
I can call her. Because I was telling her, that you were excited. I was telling her you were excited about me telling her how the success story was with my grandson.
Well, maybe she could have a testimony on one of the webinars that I do, or one of the things.
She definitely will. I'll actually FaceTime her. Hopefully, let me see. I'll FaceTime her really quick. Let her know that I'm here. Hey, Janelle. Hey, I'm on live on my podcast, and I'm talking with Mr. Robinson. And remember, I was telling you about the co-parenting, what he was trying to put together, and we were talking about the success story with Carter and you guys with co-parenting now. Did you want to ask her anything?
What's her name?
Janea.
Hey, Janea. All right. When your mother told me about the success that you guys had, the breakthrough that you had in co-parenting, we were like talking informally over at Asada High School, and I was just so touched and moved. I got up out of my seat. I said, Miss Williams, give me a hug for your daughter. Because that is so important for children to have access to both parents.
It is.
And I even found, I was telling your mom that after I discovered how important it is and how awesome it is that trauma can be handed down for 14 generations, and I read all these books.
Yeah.
One of the books I read said that when the parents of an infant show up, when they're present, it has an effect on their brain.
That's believable.
And we were talking about, well, what are some of the solutions to deal with trauma?
Right.
And there's a book called, I'm blocking right now. But anyway, it showed a group of monks meditated for long periods of time. And they put electrodes in their brain, and they found out that areas of their brain where there was no activity became lighted up. From just engaging in long-term meditation.
Okay, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Remember when we were in class on Friday, and I was telling you about that experiment they did with the mice with the cherry blossom.
Oh, yeah.
Remember I told you it was the cherry blossom. They had cherry blossom, the smell, and then they would electrocute the mice, and so they would do that so much, and then the mice would have children. And the mice after that, the generations after that, they would bring the cherry blossom smell to the mice, and the mice would start having electric shocks when they never even had the electricity, but it was generational trauma from the parent children, the generations before with the mice. How amazing is that? Yeah. Like that they didn't even have to get electrocuted, but the smell of it actually brought the trauma on for them to start to shake
and created anxiety
in the mice, but they never even got the electricity. They just smelt it. And so that happens in humans as well, because they did the research with the mice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a 6-month-old grandson, and I'm just paying whenever I'm around him and get a chance to hold him and everything. I make sure, we have a lot of eye contact. We're looking at each other's eyes all the time.
Right.
And I'm learning so much just by being with him.
Absolutely.
And, I think he might be calling me Papa before he calls his mama and his dad.
You in his face. Yep. But is there anything else you might want to ask my daughter or a thing you want to say?
Yeah, I'm putting together some training. I'm trying to find as many ways as possible to address the need for effective parenting, and maybe you could get involved with us because it's going to take all hands on deck, especially people who have had breakthroughs in the co-parenting process, because to share about that could inspire other young parents.
Absolutely. All right.
Absolutely. I'll be interested in helping you with that out.
Okay. Well, I know how to reach you.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Janaea.
You're welcome.
All right. Bye-bye. Yeah. And we were talking on Friday, and you were saying, if you needed it, I was telling you, if you needed any help, I'm more than happy to assist you in any way, that I can.
Well, this is like a life purpose for me. And the reason I say it's a life purpose is because I can look back on my life and trace it all the way back, the unifying effect of a need to actually started out with stopping people from crying. My cousin was getting a whooping when I was 2.5.
Right.
And we were all in the bed, and my grandmother came up with her strop. We're Louisiana, and she had this big old leather strap because somebody had wet the bed. And at 2.5, I couldn't understand why they had to get a whooping.
Right.
But see, down south, everybody got a whooping for almost everything. The good old down south whoopings.
Right.
And so when they started crying and begging for mercy and stuff, I was just stunned.
Yeah.
I was just laying there, but I was helpless.
Right.
And that was a moment that kind of set who I am in motion.
Right.
And then
your drive, your purpose, like you
said.
Yeah.
And then to reinforce that, when my mother came to get me, because she came, Great Migration out cotton field.
Yeah.
And she came back to get me after she got a job.
Yeah.
In the big city. She was able to take care of us. And I was 3.5. On the way back on the Greyhound bus, it must have been Chicago at night with all the lights, big pretty lights.
Right.
I had never seen lights like that before.
Right.
We were from the country. We didn't even have electricity. We had, lamps and stuff. Right.
And lanterns.
We pumped our water. But it was paradise.
Right.
And so when they gave me the choice to go with my mother or stay with my grandparents, they said I went back and forth about 4 times to the car because I couldn't make up my mind, right?
Right.
But eventually I decided to go with my mother. And I wanted to sit next to the window to see all the big pretty lights. But she was so young.
Yeah.
She was like maybe 19 or 20 herself.
Okay.
And she wanted to sit next to the window. So that was the first conflict that we had.
Right. Okay.
Because we were just so happy to be reunited and everything.
Yeah.
And then I called her May, because my cousin, everybody called her May, so that's what I called her.
Right.
So I said, 3.5-year-old now, May, I don't like you no more. and it's hard for me to actually tell the story without crying.
Oh. Yeah.
But I could do a little better now.
Okay.
Because when I told her that, she started boo-hooing on the Greyhound bus.
Oh.
Broke her when I said that. She was so sensitive.
Yeah.
And so here I am, 3.5-year-old, just looking at my mother boo-hoo on the Greyhound bus. That was so devastating to me.
Right.
I cannot stand to see anybody cry today.
Really?
And
that's part of a trauma too.
That was a trauma.
Yeah.
So on the playground, you know, I was just a Fifth Street school, and everybody wanted to box all the time. There were a lot of bullies, and I didn't like to fight, but when bullies started picking on my little friends, I would always intervene. I don't care how big the bully was. Then I got to fight the bully.
Right.
So who? This none of your business. What you want to do something about it? You know.
Right.
I mean, leave him alone. He ain't doing it to you.
Right.
You too big to be fighting him anyway. Then I got to fight the bully.
Right.
So almost I was in the office
all the time
fighting bullies, but I never got suspended
because you was protecting the underdog.
Miss Mary P. Miller, my fifth grade teacher, she saw that that potential leadership in me.
Yeah.
And so they made me the captain of cadets, you know, crossing guard.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I remember Captain I remember.
So they made me. So I had now got a license to break up the fights.
Okay.
And report people to the office. So that gave me my first experience in intervening and mediating.
Ain't that fun? And then
10 years old.
10 years old.
I still got the little certificate from the safety commission.
Do you?
Yeah. Because people, I say, I've been doing this for like 60 years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Yeah, and that started your mediation, and you've been doing it almost all your life. That's, like you said, that's your purpose.
Well, you know, after
purpose,
being trained and learning that there's dignity in allowing people to fight their own fight.
Yeah.
Because when I first started mediating, I was mediating like I already have a solution in my head. I'm going to steer them toward the solution.
Right.
Or I'm going to take up for who I perceive as a weaker person.
Yeah.
But in mediation, you kind of like directing traffic.
Yeah.
But you want them to engage in the fight.
Right.
It's a verbal fight, of course.
Yeah.
And it occurs like magic sometimes. It occurs like magic that when they face what they need to face, sometimes there'll be tears.
Yeah. And
there could be a little storm sometimes. But then when they come out of that, you could see, like in white people, when I was doing mediation work in Janesville, Wisconsin, for the Rock County Mediation Family Court Program, almost all of my clients were white.
Okay.
And I could tell when they come to resolution, because you could see a shift in the color in their skin.
When they see you.
Right. Their complexion changes.
Yeah.
It's a physical change.
It's a physical change. Ain't that something? That is something. So is there anything, if we want to wrap up, is there anything, we got so much we could talk about. But is there anything that you want to close with, or anything that you want to let everybody know about?
You mean like a word of wisdom?
A word of wisdom. That's what I was just getting ready to say. Your word of wisdom.
Well, the name of your podcast is Whispers
of Wisdom. That word of wisdom. Yep.
I'm trying to, I can boil it down to two.
You can say as many as you like. I am honored for you to be here, especially in this cold. Mr. Robinson, sir, I am so honored that you came out today. So whatever you want to say is an honor. I'm honored that you're here today.
Well, thank you for allowing me to express myself and to share my vision and purpose.
Absolutely.
But one word of wisdom, I'm going to keep it to two.
Okay.
One is any problem in life can be resolved within the context of a conversation. His life is a conversation. Yeah. And how we talk about it creates the way it is. We speak the way it is. We speak it into existence.
We do.
Because we're made in the image of God.
Yes.
And something in the Bible says that when my word goes out, it will not return to me void.
Empty. Yeah.
Right.
Back void.
And if we made it in the image of God,
right.
Same thing for us.
That's
right. Absolutely. And then the other one is as the African proverb goes, it takes a whole village to raise a child.
Yeah.
Okay. Implying community parenting.
Yeah.
All right. It takes even though it takes a whole village to raise a child that includes mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I'll stop at that.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. And well, we're going to end today. And Mr. Robertson, sir, I am so thankful that you came out on this cold day. And when Mr. Robertson said about the village, I'm going to say the same thing, because it takes a village for everybody to, come together. And I'm going to sign off by saying that I am too grateful to be quiet. So anything that I hear or know about, I'm going to make sure I get it to you guys. So again, thank you again, everybody, for coming to the Never Met a Stranger Whispers of Wisdom podcast. And we are signing off. Thank you again.